Pokémon Chaos Black. That name immediately triggers me. Why? Because my parents bought me a copy of it on some random flea market in Spain back when I was like 10 years old. At that point, I never even heard of a Pokemon ROM hack and thought this was some secret unreleased Pokemon game that only I had. When I opened it up, I started encountering Pokemon that I'd never seen before. Like, what even is a Charizard? Their designs were not top-notch, to say the least. However, I was still incredibly excited to see what this game had to offer, even though it was clearly just a reskin of regular Fire Red. But then came this pond in Mount Moon. It crushed all of my hopes and dreams because there was no way to get past it since the HM for Surf was locked behind the 5th gym, which meant I couldn't progress any further. But what if I told you that I can redeem my childhood self and make it even more exciting than it felt back then? I mean, hypothetically, what if somebody called Hacks Repairman made an entire new version of Pokemon Chaos Black with its own custom region, storyline, and expanded Pokédex? That sounded like music in my ears. What do you mean it's actually real? It's called Chaos Black Recreated? Well, what are we still doing here? Let's rectify some of my childhood dreams. The first thing I wondered when we booted up this game was, who's this mysterious black creature on the starting screen? Because he just wasn't available in the base game. So let's hope we get an answer to that today. Our game starts with the introduction of 3 characters. The main protagonist, me, a ginger with a soul, my edgy looking rival Kaz, and a Jewish professor. Wait, he's actually just named after the tree? Forget what I said. This is Professor Jew. We learned that we used to have a sister, but she went missing a couple of months ago. She also used to be a very formidable trainer, which is why we want to follow in her footsteps. And we're incredibly lucky that our mom supports that decision. Our first day starts in Espout Town, a quiet little place with the only point of interest being the lab, which is where me and Kaz get to pick our starting Pokemon. We get the choice between this water slime Blicku, Flayon the Fire Lion, and finally whatever Maggot is. As a kid, I always went with Maggot because it had an interesting typing of grass and electric, which is why I started out with it today as well. It also started out with Leech Seed in its moveset, which made our first rival battle a cakewalk. On round 1, I got hit with the Nostalgia Hammer after encountering my first Charizard, but I couldn't add it to my arsenal yet as we still needed to grab the professor's package. But once we got to Overtree City to acquire it, trouble started brewing. Because this is where we see Kaz fighting with a shady character who claims to be part of the evil Team Soul. It's because of them that my sister went missing in the first place, so their return can be a good sign at all. They're currently raiding the Pokemart, and since we're the only line of defense with no authorities around, we were supposed to play the hero. Luckily for me, their grunts were incredibly weak as my Maggot sweep through them with its newly acquired Thundershock, and one of the grunts seems to recognize me as Ratch's younger brother, which is obviously my sister. She used to be the biggest nightmare to them, and if you have as much potential as her, their team might be in big trouble. So they leave the premises to go and report back to their boss. The shopkeeper thanks us, we regroup with Kaz, and go back to the lab to deliver our package. Then we get a Pokédex and a set of the professor's balls. We also decide to keep quiet about the events that we just went through, otherwise the professor might just take us off trainer duty and our journey would be over. So with a fake smile on our face, we leave the lab and start capturing a few of these absolute abominations, like the normal poison type Charizard, this Pikmin looking bug named Tace, and whatever the normal flying type Minite is supposed to be. We nearly made it through Route 2 before Professor Jew stopped me. He's here to upgrade my Pokédex to the national version because ever since my sister went missing, all of these weird Pokemon suddenly started showing up. So her disappearance must be linked to this phenomenon. And the weird thing is, none of these Pokemon exist in any other part of the world and nobody else has ever seen them before, making them almost otherworldly. He wants us to investigate this as much as we can, so I gave him my word and headed to Sandstone City, our next destination. There's also a gym in this town that Kaz has already defeated, and now he wants to test his newfound strength against me. Not a great idea, as his yellow bird Oriq got Thundershocked by Maggot, and Flayon died to a few of Midnight's pecks. This shows that we are indeed prepared to take on this gym, but I wanted to be sure first, so I evolved my Charizard into possibly one of the worst looking Pokemon ever, Shaikun. This thing does have the very interesting Steel Poison typing, which basically can be hit by any super effective moves in the early game. With that cursed evolution out of the way, I took on the first gym leader Ashton and swept through his Geodude and Soleli by using Maggots, Leech Seeds, and Vine Whips. I'd then grab my Sturdy badge and capture 2 Pokemon on the upcoming route. The poison type Espline that just looks like a jelly bean, and also this gray hedgehog looking thing. I remember its catch rate being incredibly low as a kid, so I never even captured it. Well, today I found out this is Chaos Black's new pseudo-legendary, so I slotted this second steel type straight into my team. I then started to look out to the horizon and spotted Mount Sunrise. Without hesitation, we went inside and saw that Team Soul was once again up to no good, so we chased some of their grunts around and evolved Maggot into its new evolution, Voltine. And I just have to ask, what shampoo are you using? Cause the hair is looking sublime. After I stopped by the shampoo store, we seem to find the rest of Team Soul, who are fighting head to head with our rival Kaz. Here we also meet their boss, Eseal. He knows my sister very well because they used to fight against Team Soul together. He's also the new president of SE Corp and the one that was supposed to prevent Team Soul from taking over the region. He forced their old boss down and locked her away somewhere, and now he's going to use the power of Team Soul to try and complete his own ultimate goal of finding a way to release the 4 Poké Gods. They were sealed away hundreds of years ago, and he now requires their power, but we don't really learn to what end. He also might know something more about my sister's disappearance and calls me forward so he can gauge my power levels by having a battle. Our Voltine learned Thunderbolt at level 15, which is insane to have this early on, so our victory in this fight was basically guaranteed, just like Arsenal's second place finish in the Premier League. Once this final Pokemon Volok is defeated, he spills a little bit of the beans. This place we're standing in right now is where the 4 Poké Gods were defeated, which is why they're investigating here in the first place. And once he finds a way to resurrect them, he'll be unstoppable. He still took a big L, so he and his team decide to leave. Me and Kaz don't really know what to do next, so we'll just have to continue our badge quest, with the next gym being in Riverside City. So the both of us try to make our way through the cave. In the meantime, I also pick up the Sting Fossil, but my worst nightmare seems to have manifested yet again. The pond was back, and we had no way to traverse it. Just as we thought that our journey was over, a weird light starts to engulf the both of us. We seem to have woken up in a different version of Mount Sunrise, but it's totally different than the one we know. Almost like we time traveled 100 years into the past. We have no idea how to get back to our own timeline, so the only thing we can do is look around for answers. We quickly find a lot of old people knocked out, and this seemed to be the work of a Poké God. They were trying to trap it into a legend ball to seal it away, but the only person that's still standing is Kamina, the shaman of the Magor Kingdom. We try to explain to her that we're time travelers from the future and that sealing this Poké God is absolutely necessary for a bright future. After a lot of convincing, she eventually believes us, so we share our power with her and face off against the first Poké God, Mewtrans, also known as the God of Transformation. First thing I do is poison it with my slime. Then it decides to put me to sleep a couple of turns in a row, so I swap out into Midnight, and from there on out the poison damage just did its work. Kimina can then safely seal it away inside of the legend ball, basically just in time because all the craters we see around were made by Mewtrans' tantrum, and all of those turned into ponds in our timeline, so maybe the pond that was blocking the way is now gone. Just when we're pondering on how to get back in the first place, the white light starts to engulf us yet again, and we say goodbye to Kamina. Once we arrive back home, the pond is indeed cleared away, and that's the first time we changed history a tiny little bit. However, this must also mean that something or someone sent us back into the future so we could get past here. Hopefully these mysterious questions will get answered sooner rather than later, but for now our goal was easy, reaching Riverside City and getting that next gym badge. However, the gym leader didn't seem to be around, so I traveled north and entered Cyan Forest. This is where we learned from Kaz that there is a guy called the Cutter. Can you guess what he does? I'll give you 3 seconds. That's right, he's the guy in movies that yells cut with like the cool film thing. Oh, and in his free time, he also gives rookie trainers the HM for cut. But if you want to get to him, we need to beat up Kaz. And what better way to do it than spamming Thunderbolts, Poison Stings, and Metal Claws? He might have added a Slime and a Nuzleaf to his squad, but I think those transfers should have stayed at their old club, because they all got absolutely walloped. After his defeat, Kaz tells me that I do remind him of my own sister because she used to be champion, and the way I battle is basically exactly the same as her. I'm incredibly grateful for this compliment, but I don't have time to chit-chat anymore. Let's go get that HM for cut. In the meantime, my Taze evolved into a Podcoon, basically a knockoff version of Metapod. Plus, I witnessed a Team Soul Grunt harassing the cutter. He was stealing all of his HMs for cut, so promising up-and-coming trainers would not have access to them anymore. So let's save the day again. He only had one Pokemon, a Yeti named Jethral, and I don't want his fork-looking claws anywhere near me. As a reward for saving him, the cutter gives me a bike voucher and tells me to join him at his house where he can make a new HM for cut for us. Once it's been acquired, I head back to Riverside City to challenge the Ice-type specialist Mia. I don't really know why she calls herself a specialist because she only has 2 Pokemon. It's like if I unclog my toilet, am I suddenly a plumber? No. So let's break down this phony. She only had a Snorunt and a Jethral as well, and after spamming my deadly combo of Metal Claw, Poison Sting, and Thunderbolt, these 2 were easily defeated. So we got ourselves the Hail Badge, picked up our free bicycle, and walked to the next round where we found this really weird looking Swablu. This is also the only regular Pokemon that I saw with a new sprite like this, but there's just something about its beak, or should I say lips, that makes me incredibly uncomfortable. So I yeeted it off my screen and went on a catching spree, grabbing the normal type bunny Bambit, the normal flying type Oric, this derpy little grass sprout called Searn, and finally the cutest little fire type bear Honoguma. I also evolved Podcoon into Kurorbin, which now also adds the psychic type to him, and finally Bambit also into Wrassel. This next round led me through the cold and shivering Glacier Cave, where we not only slid on ice puzzles, but also into Abel's DMs. After a few back and forth messages, he decided to join our team and even got his friend Arufu Man to come too. What I didn't expect was being spit out back on Route 2, but there was a reason for this. You see, the gym back in Overtree had finally opened up again, and a lot of rumors said that it was going to be bug themed. So I evolved my little bird into bigger bird, little bear into bigger, more fiery bear, and I guess we also get the Yeti that needs to clip his nails. And then we challenged the leader Enos. We would turn this gym into a pile of burning rubble. With Misaka's embers, her first 2 Pokemon immediately died, plus we also managed to burn her ace Ragraw. From there on out, my bird just needed to peck it 2 times in a row, and that's how easily we got our Swarm Badge. I tried to travel west after this, which was previously blocked off, and this is where we meet a mysterious man. He tells me about how my sister used to rule the gym we just defeated, and this brought up some memories as a child where we used to play in her gym together. Back then, she knew I'd make it as a trainer one day. That's why this guy is here. She hired him to hand over the HM for Fly to me as one last gesture before she disappeared. I'll make sure to put this to good use, but in the meantime, I captured this little cat named Rinrin and arrived in Sienna Town. They have a special research lab here, but as I'm about to check it out, we get stopped by 2 Team Soul members. They were just about to take over the lab. Luckily, Kaz was here to give me backup, and together we scared them off. There's still a few of them left in the lab, but just when we're about to head in, this bright light starts flashing again and we get taken to the past. Just like last time, we see tons of sages lying on the ground defeated, and they scream out to us to go and help Kimina. A little further up, we see her fighting one of the oldest Pokemon myths ever, Mewthree. I remember vividly that there used to be fake pictures and forums with people talking about this mysterious creature. My young brain always thought that Mewthree was real, but that turned out to be a myth. And now Chaos Black has actually done it. So let's see how strong it really is. I started off by crippling it with a Thunder Wave. After getting critted by a Confusion, I then swap out into Shaikun, hit a critical Steel Wing of my own, so that Kimina can trap it in yet another Legend Ball. She even begins to think that we're gods ourselves, but we try to explain that there must be something else that's sending us here, and we have no idea what it could be. She thinks we could be sent here by the deity of time, but just as she's about to explain what that even is, our journey into the past comes to an abrupt end, and we're back in front of the lab. We rush in together, and while Kaz distracts the grunts, I head straight for Eseal, who's asking the scientists here about something called the Runes of Chaos, but they don't seem to know anything about it. I then step in before he can start searching the lab himself, and he sends out the master of all gooners, Shy Goon. This is a steel poison type, so I swap out into my Fire Bear and melt it down with embers. We also freeze over his Marowak with a couple of Aurora Beams and cut down Volok with Razor Leaves. He then says that he's doing all of this for the greater good, even if we don't understand landed yet, and with those last words, he tells his team to retreat. But we came just a little bit too late, because the scientists inform us that they've already stolen all of the information, which does indeed have the location of the Ruins of Chaos. If they find it, this world will be in immediate danger, so we need to carefully predict their next move and strike before they can. To help us out, the scientist ended up giving me 2 eggs, and I resurrected my fossil into a poison rock type scorpion called Bonpion. I then did the generic biking up and down until both of my eggs hatched, and they gave me 2 incredible team members. Skelegon, which I'm pretty sure is just a Digimon, plus the water starter Blicku. I immediately evolved it into Gekyu and took these guys on a stroll through the underground path onto Route 8. That's where I captured the fighting type Combile before making it to the big city called Seaside. This is where everything was going down. Gambling, big shops, and even a guy that gives away free tickets to a cruise. But Kaz would only allow me to reach him if we embarrass him again in a battle. So that's what I did. First, Skelegon ancient powers his bird. His evolved starter Manleon gets washed away with Gekyu's water guns. Nuzly faints to a single fly, and his last team member Decline literally only had poison attacking moves, so my steel type Furgol couldn't get hit at all and destroyed it with metal claws. This battle made Kaz realize that he needs to get stronger if he wants to stand up to Team Soul together with me. So he'll be going on the biggest Vegeta training arc you've ever seen, so that he'll hopefully be more of an opponent next time. I then went to pick up my cruise ticket, but the guy who was handing him out only gave them to people who had proved themselves by beating the local gym leader. So I prepared for that by evolving my kitten into a big cat with a bell on its tail, and then we rang Baronia Orica Vanarix's bell. Yeah, that name is incredibly long and incredibly complicated, unlike the clash between us two, where I just feint attacked his Haunter, Misdreavus, and Defector, which let me come out as the underrated Nickelodeon show victorious. I then flashed a sailor with my Phantom badge, and finally got my free ticket. On the following round, I would also capture a little electric-type tiger named Kotora, plus we would also pick up the HM for strength before boarding the SS Starlight. Once aboard, I went straight to the captain's quarters, so we could maybe nudge the ship into an iceberg and cause a second Titanic. However, the captain didn't seem to be around and was occupied elsewhere, so I went outside to the deck and saw that he was fighting off some Team Chaos grunts together with my rival. They're here to steal the boat and take it back to their hideout. Luckily, we came just in time to stop them. He would have the second evolution of my Furgol named Metagol. This guy is rocking a hairstyle that can probably pierce a tractor tire. Oh, and don't ask me what's wrong with that cursed belly button either. I just wanted to get it off my screen as fast as I could, so Demon Skeleton used Dragon Rage and Ancient Power to clear away both of his Pokémon. All of them decide to retreat by jumping overboard. After receiving the gratitude of Kaz and the captain, we arrive at Aquila Island, where Kaz immediately chases after one of the grunts that was left behind. They ran off into a building and locked the door behind him, so while Kaz tries to find a way in, he urges me to take on the local gym leader. This is where I found a pretty big flaw in the game, the level curve. It immediately jumps up to like mid-40s while my Pokemon are like low 30s. But even with that level disadvantage, you can't bring me down. I even upgraded my team a bit by adding this sunflower-looking thing with a big foot. I'm putting these dogs away before you all pick up your cameras and start taking pictures. Instead, look at this lizard with a six-pack. They're both going up against the water-type leader, Leslie. On my first turn, I set up a Sunny Day to cripple his water-type moves. Then I cut down his Armaxis with 2 Razor Leaves. He then sent out Tentacruel, who with its sludge bombs took down my starter after I switched it in. Definitely not the smartest thing I could have done. My little electric tiger was able to paralyze it, and once it finished off my bird as well, I had to send out Dimitri. He would use his fury swipes to slash through the tentacles, plus he also kicked Poliwhirl down to the curb. Aquiri would be his final team member, and this water steel type would faint with a low kick and 2 Razor Leaves. I snatched the Whirl badge and headed back to see if there was any update on the Team Soul situation. The door still hadn't budged, but luckily we get sent back into time yet again, which could be the solution to our problem. Only this time there's even trouble brewing in the past. There's this new society called the Soul Cult, and they serve the Chaotic One. Their boss somehow knew about our arrival, so he sent some of his followers down to ambush me. They also plan on destroying the entire world so they can rebuild it with their own vision. Yeah, we're not letting that happen. So we were up against their what's a fuck box. Yeah, I don't know what this is either. It doesn't look like a Pokemon at all, but maybe that's what they're trying to achieve with these Pokemon. Chaos. So we make sure to erase all of these weird lines with our eraser and barge into this nearby cave where we meet Kimina. She's currently losing the battle against Mewthree X, the second strongest Pokegod. So we jump in and get ready to save the past again. I can describe Mewthree X in one word: long. But not long lasting on the battlefield. No, 2 sparks and 2 gusts were enough to clear it already. No idea why nobody can beat these things because they're incredibly weak. With another god sealed, there's only one left remaining. They call it the Chaotic One. It's said that this creature brought all the other Pokegods to this world, plus it also has the ability to mess with universes and time, meaning that it can mix things from different universes with each other, which is probably why all those weird Pokemon started to show up in our region in the first place. It must be the work of the Chaotic One. There's no doubt about it. So we must stop it, otherwise those Pokegods might be sent back to our world as well. Kimina then finally explains to us who the deity of time is that's been helping us out, and we learn that its name is Celebi. But unlike regular Celebi, it came from an alternative universe. Now it can't only control time, but also travel between multiverses. In that moment, a mysterious lady just phases into the room and says,
"That's right. That's also why we have to end you 3 and that damn Celebi."
Kimina recognizes her as Devazi, the head of the Soul Cult. She's a witch who can somehow walk through anything. Devazi then goes on to explain that she got this ability through her hatred towards this cursed world, and now she's calling upon the Chaotic One to end it. The reason behind all of this hatred lies in the multiverse theory. You see, sometimes universes cease to exist because another universe comes in existence. This is exactly what happened to her previous universe, and just when she and all of her cultists were about to perish as well, the Chaotic One showed up and intertwined their universe with ours, which is the only reason they were able to survive. And since most of their family is gone, they decided to serve the Chaotic One with the goal of rebuilding an entire new universe. Devazi is also in constant pain because of this new ability, which definitely doesn't help her emotional tantrum. We try to explain that we understand where she's coming from, but she doesn't want to listen to our pity, so she takes Kimina hostage and we get sent back to our own timeline by Celebi. This whole ordeal teleported us inside of a weird cavern. We immediately get spotted by a Team Soulgrunt, which means this cave must be inside of that locked building. And if we want to save our friend back in the past, we probably need to take down the Team Soulgrunt here in the future. So we start spinning through their hideouts puzzles and conquered grunts left, right, and center, allowing us to acquire some major evolutions. I'm talking Metagol, Declime, Danabi, Shaigun, Aquiri, and the final evolution of our starter Pokemon, Magrunk. Not gonna lie, he actually looked kind of fire. Or should I say electric. Once that was done, me and Kaz finally reached Eseal's office. We corner him together and lay down a grilling by asking what they're up to. But this was part of his plan all along, sending in some of his grunts to hold down Kaz so we can have a one-on-one fight together. But if we manage to overpower him, he might give us some information. So I led off with my Fiery Fox against his Warufu. Great for me because we can just melt down this little snowman. The next 3 team members, Marowak, Shaigun, and Zaptone, all went down to Flame Wheels and Razor Leafs as well, which saw us getting some new intel. He explains that Team Soul is actually a reincarnation of the Soul Cult from 100 years ago. You know, the one we just fought in the past. This still didn't really explain why he joined Team Soul, but that becomes clear now. Back when Team Soul first arrived here in the region, he was obviously fighting against them with my sister Ratchet. Yes, in the end they managed to overthrow them, but this was only possible due to my sister's sacrifice. She had to close the gate between both of our universes so that this war could finally end, so that the Team Soul members from the past could not come back here. In the process, she got trapped in between these 2 universes, and now she's still somewhere out there. And so the real reason Eseal took over Team Soul is because they have the technology to reopen this portal, which would allow him to get my sister back. This puts us in a predicament. Yes, it's really noble that he wants to bring back my sister, but is it worth releasing the Pokegods for it? I don't think so. I also don't think my sister would have wanted that. So his heart might be in the right place, but he's not thinking straight. And that's why we still need to oppose him. We try to explain this to him, but he doesn't want to hear anything about it and heads off to his next mission location. He does hand me the HM for serve before he leaves, I guess as a token of gratitude, so now we can at least follow him. Our first surfing session stranded us in Thistle City. This is where we had to take on the Dark-type gym leader, Kamon. He had a team of 4 Pokemon starting out with Murkrow. My very own Shygoon somehow used Steel Wing even though it doesn't have wings, and that made quick work of this tiny bird. Houndoom would then Fire Blast 2 of my Pokemon away, but we did bring it down to red HP with a Surf. I then brought out Medical and used Iron Tails, Metal Claws, and Swords Dances to boost my own attack, which ended up being more than enough to take down his Houndoom, Syrup, yeah, I also don't really know what's going on with that name, and finally, Umbreon. Now that we've acquired the Shade Badge, I decide to check out the rest of the city and run into Kaz again. He saw more Team Soul Grunts running into this building and was going to go after them, but he's not sure if we're ready to face them again. So we have another battle to gauge each other's strength before we rush into any danger. This is how it went down. Shygoon won the matchup against Goldsond with Steel Wings. His fully evolved starter Furion got washed away by Surfs. And can I just say that Furion is definitely going to be the worst starter pick. It doesn't seem to get a useful secondary typing, and its design is just blah. So I'm glad I went with my buddy Maggot. Declimb then used his Signal Beams and Sludges to finish off Shiftry and High Knee. He then tried to counter back with his own Declimb, but after a few Psy Beams from my Bug King, the victory ended up being ours. The both of us then climbed to the top of this building, where Eseal and his grunts climb into a helicopter, fleeing the scene back to their hidden headquarters, which we assume is going to be at SE Corp. We both use Flight to get there instantly as well, but just when we're about to investigate this place, we get sent back into the past. But we know what our goal is, saving Kimina. But we also meet our other hero, Celebi, who looks even more like an onion now than it did before. She teleported us here because Devazi has acquired the final Pokegod, Chaotix, and she's not powerful enough to stop them on her own. That's why she brought us here again, so we can be the heroes of time. She leaves us alone after saying,
This is what was supposed to happen after all. You'll understand all of it soon enough.
Even though everything is still somewhat shrouded in mystery, our conscience tells us we have to stop Devazi and Chaotix if we want to save everyone. So we head inside of this nearby sacred cave and confront them. Devazi is getting ready to use Chaotix's power to swallow this entire universe whole and create a new one, and she even plans to keep Kimina around so she can watch the demise of everything she loves. An absolute diabolical plan. But Devazi got too cocky because me and Kaz are here to save the day by going head to head with the Pokegod Chaotix. He's a dark ghost type, and since the fairy type has not been implemented into this game yet, that means he doesn't have any weaknesses. But who needs to hit weaknesses when you can just poison it with a sludge bomb and then proceed to drown it out with a couple of surfs? This ended up being enough so that we could seal it yet again. Even though she can't believe we sealed it, she's still holding Kimina hostage and makes a deal with us. If we hand over the Legend Ball, she'll let Kimina go. And if we don't, well, let's just say that Kimina won't be around for much longer. The logical thing to do here would be to just walk away, but that's something we just can't do. And that's why Kimina does it for us. And so she pulls out one of her previous Legend Balls and traps her and Devazi inside. An incredibly noble sacrifice, but this doesn't end our troubles. If this Legend Ball somehow gets opened in the present, Devazi, Chaotix, and the other Pokegods will obviously be released. So now we have to try and prevent that from happening as well. In a flash, Celebi shows up again and says that this is what we were supposed to do all along, since this part of history was already written, which means even our time traveling part was destined to happen. Celebi is basically only here to make sure that things happen as they should. But from here on out, the upcoming events will completely rely on what we do, as Celebi won't be able to control the future. She then sends us back to our own timeline, and we rush into SE Corp as fast as we can, because what happens here might change the future of our world. This place is incredibly big, and they hosted some of the worst Pokemon in existence, like Whatsafucks, and even this other weird abomination called Foxelix. I captured both of these as well as this water seal type looking thing called Akua, and then we stormed the main building where we beat up all the grunts we could find, stole their key card which allowed us to reach the very top. But we're already too late because somehow his scientists have recreated 3 new forms of Mewtwo. And with those he plans to resurrect the Pokegods. Little does he know that these are actually the Pokegods. I try to tell him everything we learned in the past and even warn him that these 3 Pokemon are incredibly dangerous. But he doesn't believe that these 3 can be the Pokegods because they were made just now. He just thinks I'm trying to stop his plans again, so he goes on to attack me without a second thought. Not that that really mattered because we just thunderbolted his Skarmory, surfed away Marowak and Zaptone, body slammed Marufu, and sparked Shaigoon, ending this battle as quick as we can to avoid another catastrophe. After losing, he throws a tantrum and says that he's just trying to save my sister, and asks why I'm lying to him about these Pokegods because he created these Pokemon. They weren't supposed to have existed before. In that moment, Kaz also walks up from behind me and reiterates that I'm indeed telling the truth. Kaz then tells our entire time-traveling story, but Eseal still doesn't believe us. But then something suddenly changed his mind after Chaotix shows up out of nowhere. It immediately creates 3 black holes and drags the 3 Pokegods into them. And moments after, Devazi phases into the room as well. Eseal seems to recognize her, but not as Devazi, but instead as someone called Marini. She used to be the leader of Team Soul, the one that my sister and Eseal took down together. Team Soul somehow unsealed her many years ago, and that's when she began to lead them. She eventually even acquired the Legend Balls which contained the Pokegods, but found out that they were somehow empty. When she tried to research even further, she got stopped by my sister and Eseal. When she was trapped in between these universes together with my sister, she managed to break out after a while, and that brings us to the present. And now that the Pokegods have been created, her plan can finally go on. And the reason we could see the Pokegods in the past was because of Chaotix's power. By twisting time and space, it can basically bring anything to any point in time, which means Eseal is the one who started the tragedy 100 years ago. And because Chaotix now took the Pokegods back to the past, they should be sealed in the Legend Balls, and that ties everything together. And now Devazi goes off to release them. Eseal can't fathom that all of this was his fault and starts to emotionally break down in front of us. Suddenly, he then stands up and runs away from us. So now it's up to me and Kaz to try and save the world again. We are the heroes of time after all. Our next course of action will be tracking down Eseal so we can ask him where the Pokegods were sealed, because that's probably where our clash with Devazi is going to go down. So we head out in search of him and find a Pokemon tower that is currently being blocked off. And the only way we can enter is if we acquire the spell tag from the great sage Mitsubishi. He was located in the nearby Darkwood town. This is where we visit his secret underground chamber, but he already seemed to know about our arrival because Celebi told him about us. And he agrees to give me the spell tag if we can beat him in a Pokemon battle. This might have been the easiest battle in the entire game because he only had 2 Pokemon, those being Miss Magius and Defector. We exercised both of these easily, grabbed our spirit tag, and went back to the tower. Inside, we grabbed the Honout as our newest team member, and after climbing up 1,000 stairs, we eventually reached the top. This was indeed where Eseal was hiding. He's clearly still beating himself up, because in the end, him trying to save my sister just caused her to be trapped in the first place. I try to tell him that it's okay and that we just need the location of the Pokegods so we can try to clean up this entire mess, but he doesn't want me to take the risk to end up like my sister. But he can see in my eyes that we don't want to give up even though we know how dangerous it is. So he wants to strike a deal. If we prove to him that we're strong enough, he'll give us a location. He hadn't changed around his team since last time. However, this was by far the hardest battle we had with him. Probably because I added a couple of Pokemon to my team that really weren't as good. We do start off great by KOing his Skarmory with my Spark. I then swap out into a Kiri once his Marowak comes out, but it survived the surf and killed me with a Bonemerang. I then sent in my Snowman who could blast it away with an Aurora Beam, but his Zapdone's Rock Blast made me crumble under pressure. It then paralyzed my next 2 Pokemon and overpowered them with Thunderbolts until finally my abomination of a Pikachu finished it off with a Body Slam. His Warafu then took me down to my last Pokemon, who could squish it with a body slam, so we also moved on to his final Pokemon, Shygoon. None of my moves are going to be very effective against this, as it's a steel type. But with the power of the best RNG in the world, we still managed to overcome it. First, we kept on confusing it with Teeter Dance, so it kept hitting itself in its confusion. Then we hit it with a body slam, so it might get paralyzed on top of this. And finally, I'd use Minimize so that the chances of him hitting us were even lower. This combination was so perfect, it ended up winning us the fight. Otherwise, we might have never found the Pokegods and our universe would have ceased to exist. Eseal then promises to take me to the place where the Pokegods were sealed once we can meet up with him in Hot Wind City. So we go out to try and do that, but we end up running into Kaz, who already knows about the plan, and he needs to know if we're confident enough to deal with Team Soul. So to put me on top of my game, we have another battle here. He now boasts the final evolution of his yellow bird. Not that that really matters, since it still gets buried under my Scorpion's Rock Slide. The same then happens to Heine. We KO Furion with Surf, use Flame Wheel to KO Shiftry, and deliver the worst performance in concert history by Perish Songing Decline. We then make it to Hot Wind City, where I first take on the 7th Gym Leader as our last preparation before saving the world. During this, we also got a new evolution, Defector, which was perfect to take on Zoe's fighting types. This battle was over in a matter of minutes because my Pheasant used its Drill Pecs to pierce through her Hitmontop and Ragraw, my Little Devil then Shadow Balled her Medicham, and Decline delivered a devastating Psybeam, which sealed the Fizz Badge in our possession. After this, me, Eseal, and Kaz take the boat to Seal Island. Here we first meet the guy that delivered us the HM for Fly from our sister. He wasn't just a random NPC after all. Nope, turns out his name is Austin, and he helped out my sister and Eseal back when they faced Team Soul the first time. So now he'll be helping us out again, firstly by giving me a Master Ball that my mom kept for me, and secondly by holding off Team Soul Grunts if they ever try to interfere with us. So we all group up together and head inside of the sealed chamber. It seems like Devazi has already started her plan because reality starts to shift as two different universes start to collide with each other. Eventually, we enter a portal that leads us into the Chaos World, which is where we somehow run into Kamina talking to an orange-haired girl. After taking a second look, I can't believe my own eyes. It's my sister. We must have finally reached the place where she got trapped. When she turns around, our sister is incredibly shocked to see us, because nobody should ever be able to enter this world unless somebody breaks the seal, which is what Devazi has done with the power of Chaotix. We explain everything that happened to our sister. This makes her realize that she has to team up with me and Kamina. Together, we traverse this wretched world and eventually reach an old house where Devazi must be hiding. So the three of us go inside to have our final standoff. Dealing with the 4 Pokegods and Devazi at the same time might have been difficult for the three of us. Luckily, Kaz, Eseal, and Austin come in just at the right time to give us backup. This should give us way more time to focus on our main target, Chaotix. So we step up to this wretched witch, but she's also had 100 years to prepare for this fight, so it's not going to be as easy as last time. So we throw out our Little Devil against her Kyonpan and use our Shadow Ball to nearly take her down, but she does it herself with a curse on the same turn anyway. After that, she doesn't play around anymore and straight up brings out Chaotix. I let my Little Devil go down to a Flamethrower and then bring in my bird. It uses Thunder Wave against Chaotix to cripple it so that the rest of my team can outspeed, but we only ended up needing my Scorpion's Rock Slides to finish it off. A Mega Horn then easily KO'd her Gardevoir as well, but this Anchor Shark called Ikira feinted me with an Iron Tail. Our starter also finally gets to do something using its Thunderbolt to send it back to the bottom of the sea. Dyneba then Flame Wheels Ragraw, which only leaves her with a Skelegon. I knew it was a Dragon Rock type, so I brought out my starter again, tanked a couple of Rock Slides, and turned those bones into Bone Meal with my Razor Leafs. Me and all of our friends won this fight, and we tell Vazi that she's all on her own. Nobody's on her side. Everybody basically hates her because she wants to destroy this world. Not even her own cult members want her anymore. But Devazi goes on to say that she's far from alone. She has been linked with Chaotix. They understand each other and they try to aim for the same goal. But Kamina goes on to say that she's wrong because Chaotix is actually an empty vessel that thrives on chaos if it doesn't have any other goal. So Devazi breaks down and says,
What else can I do? Thanks to this cursed, corrupted body and ability I gained, I'm immortal, but always in pain. I'm trapped in the moment when I was half consumed by the Chaos World.
So Kamina says,
Why don't you just become mortal again?
and in that moment, Devazi suddenly loses the connection to Chaotix and can't walk through anything anymore. Somehow, she returned to normal. Turns out this was all part of Kamina's plan. She met up with Celebi here in the Chaos World and used its powers to revert Devazi back to her normal self before Chaotix messed her up. The only win-con was that we had to defeat Chaotix so that its power would be weakened, which we of course did right here. From here on out, Devazi's reign is finally over and the region can rest in peace. My friends go on to bring her to the police so they can arrest her, and we are left behind with Chaotix, so we use our Master Ball on it so we can use its power against our final gym battle and eventually the Elite Four and Champion. And I guess this also ensures nobody else is going to abuse its power in the future. Following up, we head back to the mainland where we can catch up a bit with Ratch and Kimina. They firstly thank me for saving them. Kimina, however, does also want to go back to her own timeline, but Celebi says she no longer belongs there. It'll be hard for her to try and adapt to this new timeline, but me and my sister are going to try and help her out as much as we can. My sister is also going to take her position as champion back. That's why she gives me the HM for Waterfall, so we can hopefully challenge her sooner rather than later. We then say goodbye to the both of them and continue our adventure, with our next destination being the power plant where we meet a new legendary Pokemon named Ray. I was going to capture this knockoff Raikou, but I forgot to save and it roared me out of battle, so now we can never encounter it again. So disappointed, we leave this place and make it to Getaway City, our last stop before Indigo Plateau. There was only one thing left to do here, challenge the local gym. But when I reached the leader, I was very surprised to see my best friend Kaz that had taken up the position. Turns out becoming a gym leader was one of his biggest dreams, and now that the old gym leader has stepped down, he took this opportunity. I think this is very good because defeating my rival to gain my last gym badge is like the perfect send-off story for my Pokemon League arc. So let's test out Chaotix's power and see if he's as strong as he's supposed to be. He starts off great by nearly turning this bird into Kentucky Fried Chicken, but I was already anticipating a heal, so I swapped out into my Scorpion and buried it under a pile of rocks to turn after. We also use Sludge Bomb and Rock Slide to finish off the next two Pokemon, Shiftry and Heiny. I bring out Chaotix again against his Deck Climb and use its Shadow Balls to send it straight to the Chaos World. His next team member, Grog, then used Earthquake to take down my Slime Monster, but Big Bird used its big beak to Drill Peck it away, leaving him with just his starter, Furion. And so we ended our final clash with a Rock Slide from my Scorpion. Kaz then hands over the Gate Badge and wishes me a ton of luck in our Pokemon League challenge. We leave our rival in the dust for the final time ever and bring out our incredibly big brain to complete Victory Road's strength puzzles. This would see us reach the Indigo Plateau where we built our final team. I brought back two old but gold team members and evolved them into their final forms. These being the Transformer Ultigel, who's still rocking that amazing hairstyle, and lastly the cousin of Sandslash, Sasslash. After building the rest of my team as well, I went into the first room and was surprised to see that Jasmine was now the first Elite Four member. Poison types can't hit Steel types, however, so this ended up being a full sweep with Ultigel's Meteor Mashes. I guess that's what you get for giving a pseudo-legendary to Steel and Dragon typing, because this guy is absolutely busted. This meant we could move on to the second member, Blast Joe, the Electric type user. He'd be a bit more difficult since we don't have any ground types on the team, but with the help of Sasslash's Ice Beams, we could still knock out Raitora, Zaptone, and Raichu before having to swap out with Magneton. Chaotix's Flamethrower easily defeated it, and with a couple more Shadow Balls, his final Pokemon Ampharos would also go down. 2 Elite Fours down, 2 more to go. And the next one, Sena, would end up being incredibly easy as she boasted grass types. Her Sani, Valplume, Jumpluff, Breloom, and finally Magrunk all got defeated by either Flamethrower, Sludge Bomb, or Ice Beam. It really is a shame that grass types have so many weaknesses. Otherwise, she might have actually been able to put up a fight. But now we move on to our last pre-champion battle. And who better than to be this person than Austin, the man that helped us out in so many crucial moments, and he always believed in us as a Pokemon trainer. So let's show him that he was right all along. What I didn't expect was for him to specialize in normal types and bring out a castle. According to my sources though, bunnies can't really swim good, which is why Akiri could wash it away with 2 surfs. But then he didn't want to play around anymore, as his Slacking used Earthquake and Hyper Beam to deal with both my starters. However, we were able to put a Leech Seed on it. He also had to recharge due to the Hyper Beam, which meant Ultigel could strike it into space with some Meteor Mashes. We also got an attack boost, but not even that was enough to take down his Snorlax, and since we took an Earthquake earlier, his Body Slam is enough to finish me off. The following turn, he used Rest to heal up, which gave my Scorpion the opportunity to set up 2 Swords Dances. We then started spamming Sludge Bomb, and that was the end of Snorlax, Dodrio, and Whatsafucks. This makes Austin so incredibly proud of us, because just like my sister did before me, we also managed to beat him. He wishes us luck in our final fight, and we slowly approach Ratchet. As my sister, she's incredibly excited to see me here, but as Pokemon League champion, she's not allowed to hold back. So she comes at us with all that she has. And our clash of siblings starts off with my Akiri against her Shygoon. So like usual, say it with me, we drown it out with Surf. After tanking a Rock Tomb and an Earthquake from her incoming Tyranitar, we do the same to it as well, and for whatever reason, her Blaziken doesn't take me out and uses Slash, leaving me with 1 HP, allowing me to counter back with another Surf to get a 3rd kill I never should have gotten. Even though she's the champion, my sister doesn't seem to have the best battle IQ. She then brings out her ace and most dangerous Pokemon, Ultigel, which can even win a one-on-one battle against my Chaotix, but at least we hit 2 flamethrowers and burned it too. It also got confused due to the outrage that it used, which was perfect for my Sasslash as we used Ice Beam to freeze it. But Ratchet wasn't done yet, bringing out her Gardevoir next. Even though this wasn't the best matchup, we still got a decent amount of damage off with 2 crunches before she exploded our mind with a Psychic. Magrunk would then use Thunderbolt to force her into her last Pokemon Exeggutor, so I brought in my Scorpion and delivered the final blow with Sludge Bomb. With this victory, we soar past our sister and become champion of the Pokemon Chaos Black remake. Finally, making my childhood dream come true. Now, would I say that this is the best game ever? Absolutely not. But it's also really not bad, so if you have any nostalgia with Chaos Black at all from back in the day, I highly recommend that you check this out. And even if you're looking for something light that isn't too hard to play through with wacky fakemon, this could also be the game for you. In general, I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. I really like how they revamped the entire region, but it just kept on reminding me of Kanto a little bit too much. There is also an entire post-game with 6 more badges that you can get through if you want, but I decided to cut my journey short here. If you do want to see a full playthrough with the post-game, leave it in the comments down below, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. As always, I also want to thank my membership and Patreon supporters for supporting the channel. It really does mean the world to me that so many of you decided to sign up in the last few months, and we're only just getting started. So if you'd want to help out the channel as well, you can always click the links down below. With all of that out of the way, I've been Zwiggo, and I'll see you all in the next one.